And of course, for me, one of the best moment, I think, as being president. I have three kids. One was bar mitzvah when I was treasurer. One was bat mitzvah after I was past president. But my middle son was bar mitzvah when I was president. So in those days, you know, we sat with the top hats and the, which I'm sorry to see have gone by the by, and in our morning suits. And it was really, for me, looking at all our friends and all the congregants and being the president of the synagogue, and here was my son, who all three children were students of Solomon Schechter and Herzl, who came up and did and performed his services, and it was, you know, of course, not the only one, but having been versed in the tradition, handled it with great aplomb, and I just sat there and I
took it all.
I said, "Hey, this is my son, and he sees me as the president of the congregation." So it was a great touching moment.
Yeah, what a memory.
We always ran short of food. We never ran short. So one day the head usher at the time, a fellow by the name of Abe Weinstein, gave his life to the synagogue. Hard-working man. Comes one day, Morty. He said, "You know why we don't have no food?" I said, "Why?" He says, "People are taking the food and putting it in their pockets. What should we do?" I said, "What should we do? I think the nice thing to do would be supply them with doggy bags so they shouldn't dirty their pockets." Look,
It
it
is what
still happens today, I'm sure. It's part of the synagogue business.
When I came into the shul in '56, we sat separately.
Right.
Men and women were not together. And that was a great issue, very great issue. The old timers, really, the older membership, were not in favor.
that mixed seating.
Correct. The younger membership, under the aegis of Rabbi Cohen, he thought it was the right time for this community to go co-ed.
So that was under you.
During this period, from the time that I was a child until now, we had the issue concerning family seating,
Right.
because at that time, if you recall, the aisles on the extreme right and extreme left were for the women, and the men sat in the middle. And I forget those pews that are at sort of right angles to the bima on each side. I don't recall. It certainly wasn't family seating, but I don't recall whether these were women sitting in each section or whether there were men sitting in each section. Then, aside from this, and it wasn't a really controversial issue because we wanted to make sure this was one of Rabbi Cohen's promotions.
Right.
I shouldn't call it a promotion. It's not really a promotion because he felt that this was the way to go. And it didn't take a lot of pushing on his part to get the congregants behind him because they were in favor of it. Why not?
My fondest memory was when I recited my bar mitzvah, 50 years after.
Really?
Yeah, which was 2003, which is now 10 years ago. My Yitro Parsha, which I had sort of refreshed my memory, and was a little difficult for me because my bar mitzvah, although I was a born member in this shul, my bar mitzvah was in the Spanish and Portuguese because my Bobby lived on the Kom. She was a Shomer Shabbos, and if she was going to be there, I had to have it nearby, so it was in the Spanish. So the Nigun was Sephardi, so when I had to study for my bar mitzvah, it was like a different trop, which we did. And the whole bar mitzvah was in memory of a young lad, Branislav, who never had a bar mitzvah. He was exterminated in the ghetto at 9 years old. So it was linked to the Holocaust Museum here in Montreal.
And when I was asked to be president, I said that I would love to do it, but not going on the bima with all these tuxedos, etc. I had when I was a young boy in Romania, and I would go to the high holidays with my father and grandfather. There were always on the bima these people in dark suits with high hats, etc. And once I asked my father, who are these people? They didn't look like us. His answer was very simple. They are the paritzim of the congregation. Paritz is considered to be a wealthy person. And it stayed with me. So when I came here, I didn't want to feel that I'm a paritz. And that's why I changed the attire of the people on the bima.
The greatest challenge, which was really the only major one, was it was a time of changing clergy in the synagogue. And it was a time of changing clergy that came out of necessity, not out of planning. And the challenge was really to change the clergy without it becoming divisive within the synagogue and without setting up camps. And that was really the toughest challenge, and having people exit comfortably with respect and with dignity, because anytime somebody exits, if it's not with respect and dignity, the incoming person always feels, well, if they did that to this person, what's going to stop them from doing that to me? So it was A, not being divisive within the synagogue, and B, maintaining a modicum of dignity and respect both for the synagogue and the exiting person. So that
my twins were about to have their bar and bat mitzvah. And being I was Parnas at the time, I said, well, you're the Parnas' son, you have to learn the whole Torah portion. You're not just going to do a Haftorah like everybody else. So he starts learning it, and my daughter looked up at me, and I could, before she said it, I could see it, and I knew that if I didn't agree to let her read Torah, her and Judaism were going to part ways. So it had been passed already by the board, and she actually was the first female to read from the Torah. People thought she was just going to do the Haftorah, and when she started to read the Torah, you could hear a pin drop in the synagogue. And then an undercurrent. Are there Sam's daughters reading Torah? I don't believe this. It was.
You know, we had a member here who lost a parent.
Right.
And he was really afraid that he would not make a minyan. And I mean, this was a man who was observant. And it was really of a very big concern. And he phoned up Rabbi Moses and expressed his concern. And one night we went there for Shiva. It happened to be the rabbi, myself, and another past president. And we get there. There's 8 people. There's 9 people. And we stay, and we stay. And they're phoning people to try and get that 10th person. And he was a professor, and I think one of his friends was ending his class, and he would be there by 8 at the latest.
Wow.
And he said, please, you know. And so we stayed, and finally the 10th person came and said Kaddish, and we left. several days later, I got such a beautiful note from him, thanking not only the congregation for being there to support him in his time of mourning, but also very personally to me, and that really touched me. Because in my mind, that's what a synagogue is. It's community. You're there for your fellow congregant and the community at large, and I would say that was the highlight.
Really, the highlight of my presidency, I never wasn't the president, the highlight of me being here was being up on the bima, and all the past presidents were up there during Kol Nidre. Okay, and I have to tell you how proud I felt about being there. It was an unbelievable moment that the presidents, all of them, were still coming to shul. They were still active. They were still very fond of the shul, and that was something, and that's something that I'm going to go away with.
Everybody keeps asking me about my hats. These are just some of them, but I wanted to share them with you. And no, I'm not wearing them right now, but I think I'll always be remembered as the president that wore the hats, or the girl with the hat. So this is what I look like without a hat.
The real Heidi.
The real Heidi. One thing that I loved about being president was seeing people and greeting people. I used to do it before I was president, when I was just in the shul as a volunteer. I would stand in the back and greet people. I would do it with Barney. Hi, Barney, Hans, and we would greet people coming in. I love doing that. I love to see people smiling coming in, and if they're going through a rough time, just welcoming them in, and that was really important to me, and still is. So that's a fond memory, people helping each other and volunteering. But on a personal note, and I have to thank everybody out there for giving me the opportunity of being president when I was being able to give my Kol Nidre speeches and have my parents, both my mother and father, in the audience, and seeing their daughter up as the president of Shaare Zion congregation. And to me, that was a highlight of my life, and hopefully to theirs too, and I thank you all for giving me that opportunity.
Great.